Jananim Sharadam Devim Ramakrishnam Jagadgurum Padapadme Tayo Shritva Pranamami Muhurmuhu Namah Shri Yatirajaya Vivekananda Suraye Satchit Sukhaswarupaya Swamine Tapaharine. The subject of this talk is the Ramakrishna mold and how we can cast ourselves in this mold. Ramakrishna mold is a phrase coined by Swami Vivekananda himself. In Bengali, he called it Ramakrishna Mushai Adruto Hote Have. We should cast ourselves in the Ramakrishna mold. What is the Ramakrishna mold? Swami Vivekananda himself defined it as follows: one who has not harmoniously combined in himself or herself the four yogas, Jnana Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, Raja Yoga and Karma Yoga, has not cast himself or herself in the Ramakrishna mold. Which means the Ramakrishna mold is a harmonious blending of the four yogas. This is Swami Vivekananda's very important message, the universal message for all humanity, in which the integrated personality and self-development of a human being becomes possible for what Swami Vivekananda said, Atmano mokshartham jagat hitaya cha, for one's own liberation and for the welfare of the whole world. This idea of the harmony of four yogas and the Ramakrishna mold, Swami Vivekananda derived from the life and teachings of his own divine master, Sri Ramakrishna. Swami Vivekananda spoke of the master as a unique combination of intensity and extensity. He said, a stream which is very deep is usually narrow, and a river which is very broad is usually shallow. Depth and breadth, intensity and extensity usually do not coexist in the same thing, person, or an organization. Swami Vivekananda's own example was broad as the skies and deep as the ocean. Akasha, the sky, is extremely vast and broad, and the ocean is deep and intense. He asked us the question, is it possible for the same individual to combine both intensity and extensity, profound and deep as the ocean, and vast and broad as the skies? And this is possible through the combination of the four yogas, which was what Swami Vivekananda defined as Ramakrishna mold. Ramakrishna Mushai Dhruto Hova, casting oneself in the Ramakrishna mold. This once again is related to the fundamental faculties of the human mind. It is well known in psychology and philosophy that the human mind has three fundamental faculties: thinking, feeling, and willing. Thinking, in which you go deep into a particular thought, contemplating, meditating, cogitating, pondering, reflecting. You take up a thought, get deeply absorbed in that thought, think about it, dream about it. The whole system gets absorbed and saturated with this thought. Feeling with the heart. The heart is so intensely moved by compassion, seeing the suffering of humanity and the feelings of joys and sorrows, which is a very important component of the human existence. However much you may be extremely thoughtful and deep in analysis, unless you synthesize with your mind and heart, your analytical faculties will be meaningless. Analysis and synthesis have to go together, hand in hand, harmoniously. A mind which is only analytical is a mind which cuts everything to pieces. Rabindranath Tagore, the famous poet, made a very pithy statement. There's a small book containing several aphoristic statements of Rabindranath called The Stray Birds in English, which he himself translated, and Konika in Bengali. There's a statement there. A mind which is sharp but not broad sticks at every point and does not move. And he also says, a mind which is analytical, extremely sharp, is like a sword with no blade, no handle. It's a blade with no handle. A sword which is all blade and no handle, it makes the hand bleed that handles it. So analytical mind has to be harmoniously blended with and combined with a heart which is very broad and feeling. A mind which is very sharp, discriminating, discerning is a mind which is devoted to jnana, jnana yoga. A heart which is feeling is moved by bhakti yoga. Swamiji wanted a combination because, as he said in one of his letters to his dear Madras disciple, whom he called Kidi, nicknamed him, he said, jnana is all right, but it may end up with dry intellectualism. Bhakti is glorious and grand, but it may become simple sentimentalism and emotionalism. A combination of both is required. A harmony of both is required. And willing is a third faculty, which is the courage to implement what you have thought about. That is the capacity of making the right decision. the deciding factor in which the mind is able to come to certain decisive conclusion. In Vedanta, we talk about a 5-layered human personality, which is discussed elaborately in the Taittiriya Upanishad. The self, the human personality, has 5 layers, each of them an independent self, Atma. Annamaya, Pranamaya, Manomaya, Vijnanamaya, Anandamaya Atma. Annamaya, the physical self, the body, the senses. Pranamaya, the vital self, the prana, the energy, the vital force. Manomaya, the mind, the thinking faculty, with thoughts, ideas, imaginations, cogitations, reflections. Now, beyond these 3, Annamaya, Pranamaya, Manomaya, you have the Vijnanamaya Atma. Vijnanamaya is a faculty by which you decide, determine. It's called a buddhi, nischayatmika buddhi, vyavasayatmika buddhi. These are certain words which are used in the scriptures. Nischaya means coming to a clear conclusion, having a vision of truths in which there is certainty, there is no vacillation, there is no wavering. That comes through intuition. So beyond reason, there is intuition. Instinct, reason, intuition are the 3 phrases which we commonly use. Instinct is from Pranamaya, reason is the Manomaya, and intuition is the Vijnanamaya. The intuitive faculty in which truth comes to you like a flash. You are thinking whether this will be right or that will be right. The Manomaya oscillates between the pairs of opposites, theses and antitheses, what we call the dialectic process. The oscillation between the theses and the antitheses ends in a synthesis. Theses, antitheses, and synthesis is well known in the dialectical process in Western philosophy. And the same idea is seen in Vedanta, the Manomaya oscillating between the pairs of opposites, and the Vijnanamaya coming to a conclusion saying this shall be done this way or this shall not be done this way, coming to a decisive conclusion. And that happens in the heart and not in the head. This is a fundamental difference between the idea that it is the head which participates in thinking and the heart which participates at the end of the thinking process to make knowledge mature into wisdom. Data becoming information, information elevated to the level of knowledge, and knowledge maturing into wisdom, and wisdom is issuing forth in action with purity and deep love for service to humanity. This was Swami Vivekananda's grand plan of a combination of jnana, bhakti, karma and yoga. Swamiji's favorite idea which he wanted to give to humanity was a combination of these 4. is that jnana is all right, as he wrote in that letter I mentioned, but there's a danger of it degenerating into dry intellectualism. Bhakti is wonderful and grand, but it may become sentimentalism or emotionalism. A combination, a harmony of all these is required. Ramakrishna was such a harmony. Such beings are few and far between. If each of us cannot individually attain this harmony, we may attain it collectively by interacting, equipoising, adjusting, and fulfilling one another. This will be a harmony of a number of persons and a decided advance over other creeds. This was Swami Vivekananda's statement. Suppose I am very emotional and with great feeling, crying and feeling for everybody, emotional, sentimental, and you are deeply analytical. You don't accept anything an emotion, you think about it, cogitate about it, reflect upon it. And a third person is full of action. He doesn't believe in simply thinking and crying, feeling. He wants to act, do something specific, positive, a karma yogi. And the fourth man is contemplative. He says, don't worry about wasting time and emotion and thought and action. I want to close my eyes and meditate deeply. Calm your mind. In the depths of your meditative, calm mind, there's a flash of the intuition where you can see your real nature as the Atman. So you have a bhakti yogi who is emotional and sentimental and great feeling. You have a jnana yogi who is a great thinker. A karma yogi who acts relentlessly for the good of everybody selflessly. And a raja yogi who goes to the depths of his meditative awareness to find out the truth. Now, if you think of these four people as one unit, rather than saying that each person has to combine, why not think of these four people as a single unit in which jnana, bhakti, karma, and yoga have been harmoniously combined? This is Swami Vivekananda's idea. If we can do that, then we can generate a new culture and civilization in the world in which these four yogas will get blended and transform the consciousness of humanity. This was Swami Vivekananda's great dream, which he wanted to actualize through the Ramakrishna mission and the Ramakrishna Math. It's a great experiment which he initiated, and largely successfully he did that. It is hardly 100 years now. Vivekananda said this will go on for 1500 years. The spiritual impact which has come to Beluru Math, the spiritual wave which has arisen here will inundate the world and go on for 1500 years. And this shall be a great university. Do not think I imagine it, I see it, he said. And therefore, the experiment which he initiated can be enlarged to the whole of society, India and abroad, and the entire humanity can be cast in this mold of Ramakrishna, Ramakrishna Musha, through collective groups of people coming together with jnana, bhakti, karma and yoga, wisdom and knowledge, devotion and feeling, action and work, meditation and contemplation combined harmoniously. Thinking, willing, and feeling, these three faculties will come together. We, as human beings, are constantly operating at the three levels. We have the thinking level in which we contemplate, we deeply cogitate and think. We have the willing level in which we act, making the right choices and actions. And the feeling level in which we have tremendous compassion, feeling, love, unselfish service attitude. Unless a person can combine all the four faculties together, jnana, bhakti, karma and yoga, he will not be cast fully in the mold of Ramakrishna. That is Swami Vivekananda's idea. He writes in a letter to his dear Madras disciple Alasinga Perumal about his work in the West. I want to give them, meaning the Westerners, hard, dry reason, soaked in the sweetest syrup of love, made spicy with work, and cooked in the kitchen of yoga so that even a baby can easily digest it. Look at the statement. Such a poetic statement. I want to give them hard, dry reason, jnana, soaked in the sweetest syrup of love, bhakti, made spicy with work, karma, and cooked in the kitchen of yoga, is Raja Yoga, so that even a baby can easily digest it. Swami Vivekananda wanted the highest truths should be put in the most poetic language. He wanted a harmony of the various ideas of the human mind. In a lecture in Jnana Yoga, he said, science and religion shall meet and shake hands. Poetry and philosophy will become friends. This will be the religion of the future, and if we can work it out, it will be for all peoples and for all times. He was the great harmonizer, synthesizer. Ramakrishna once said, in the two words, equilibrium and synthesis, the entire constructive genius of Swami Vivekananda can be summed up. Equilibrium and synthesis. And he adds, Ramakrishna, in his famous book, Swami Vivekananda and the Universal Gospel, he says, he was a personification of the harmony of all human energy. It's a fantastic idea. All human energy, which can be reasonably classified into four: the energy through jnana, thought; the energy through bhakti, feeling, emotion, love; the energy through karma, selfless service; and the energy through yoga, contemplation and meditation. All the human energy flows out in these four channels. Swami Vivekananda asked a question, is it possible for a person to combine all these forces of human nature, jnana, bhakti, karma and yoga, harmoniously in oneself? The answer which he found in the glorious, elevated, life of his own divine Guru, Sri Ramakrishna, was yes, it is possible, it can be done, it ought to be done, and a person who lacks in any one of these, who is deficient in any one of these yogas, has not cast himself in the mold of Sri Ramakrishna. Ramakrishna Mushai Druto Hoini. So all of us, as followers and the admirers of the Ramakrishna Vivekananda ideology, should strive our utmost to combine in our own lives, individually and collectively, these four yogas: jnana, bhakti, karma, and yoga, so that our lives will be blessed and fulfilled. Sri Ramakrishna wanted an all-round, integrated, harmonious development of the human personality, and the society should also be formed on the same lines. Is it practical? Is it possible? Vivekananda emphatically said it is possible and is the most practical. And he also said that society is the greatest, and with the highest truths become the most practical. The idea, this truth may appear to be very high, but that society is the greatest, and with the highest truths can be practicalized. He called it the practical Vedanta. Vedanta is not for hermits and ascetics in the caves and the forests of the Himalayas, but that Vedanta has to be brought from the forests and the caves to the marketplace to be practiced now. Teach everyone this grand ideal of Advaita, oneness, harmony, and see how the sleeping soul awakens. Swami Vivekananda repeatedly taught, awake, awake, uttishtata, jagrata. We are now sleeping, and the Atman which is sleeping, when it awakens, all power will come. He said, power will come, glory will come, all that is good and grand will come when the sleeping soul awakens to its unconscious activity. So, this soul is awakened to its highest ideal. When it awakens, you realize that all knowledge and wisdom is within you, all love and the power of service capacity is within you, and the meditative awareness in which your mind becomes deep and calm. Prashanta manasam henam yoginam sukhamuttamam upaiti shantarajasam brahmabhutam akalmasham. The Bhagavad Gita. When the mind becomes prashanta, particularly extraordinarily calm and tranquil, and when all blemish, all negativity is removed, then you attain to Brahman, which is akalmasha, without any blemish. Then what happens? You emerge as a new, completely transformed personality, and the society will become a completely integrated, harmonious society. This message he picturized in a very wonderful small diagram which arose in the mind of this great rishi of the modern times. In the pure heart of this rishi arose this vision as a diagram, as a picture, in which he said, he drew that picture himself. There is a rising sun of jnana. the luminosity of intelligence and wisdom and knowledge, and the blooming lotus of bhakti, devotion, and the waves of the ocean, restless, of karma. And encircling this was a serpent, which is symbolic of Kundalini Shakti or yoga, and there's a swan in the picture sitting in the lotus, which is symbolic of the Paramatman or the Paramahamsa. So the meaning of this picture, Vivekananda said, is that by a harmonious combination of jnana, bhakti, karma and yoga, the vision of the Paramatman is obtained. And he gave a motto, Tanno Hamsa Prachodayat. He is from the Mahanarayana Upanishad. May that Paramahamsa, may that Hamsa be your eternal inspiration. This message, the universal message which he gave for mankind, epitomizes the entire teaching of Ramakrishna Vivekananda. And when the world is now torn apart, rent asunder, strife torn, conflict ridden, his voice coming from Swami Vivekananda as he received it from the voice of his great master Sri Ramakrishna, and which he actualized through Ramakrishna Mutt and the Ramakrishna Mission. This voice is much more relevant and urgently needed for the present day world. Let us listen to this voice, the music of the spheres which is rising constantly in the cosmos, and make our individual and collective lives blessed. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Tat Sat Shri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.